Welcome into the Saints Insider Podcast, a rainy, cloudy Friday, December 6th for a rainy, cloudy Saints franchise. They play the Panthers on Sunday, who are 1-11. And so maybe it'll be a chance for the Saints to get back in the win column. They've lost 3 in a row. We will break down the matchup and talk about whether we think that'll happen with predictions at the end. I'm Zach Ewing. That's Rod Walker, Luke Johnson, and Matthew Parrish here with us, our Saints Insider team. Guys, least hyped regular season Superdome game ever, or just like in the top 10?
Oh no, I mean let's not give into recency bias here. There was the Dolphins Monday Night Football game a couple of years ago that absolutely nobody wanted to go to because the whole team was out with COVID and they had Ian Book starting at quarterback. I don't even think they had they used their entire practice squad for that. I don't even think they had a full roster.
I was morbidly curious for that game.
Morbidly curious, sure, but nobody was going into that wanting to watch that game. You know, I mean, there have been others. It's been a long time since I think maybe the fan base has felt this way about the team, generally speaking. But it's not even going to be the worst game I've ever covered in the Superdome.
But I do think it won't be the worst. Like, I agree with the Miami game was the first one that came to mind. But I mean, you can find tickets for this for like $15 right now. So that's cheaper than a tub of popcorn, I'm sure, at a game. So
yeah, people are speaking with their pocketbooks. I mean, like last year's game against Carolina at home was like a dead rubber at the end of the year, right? Like it didn't mean anything. So that one's got to be
10-7, baby. I think Marcus Davenport's last act as a Saints player was getting in a fight with Deontay Foreman. Now they're both on different teams. That was fun.
Was 10-7 last year's score, or your prediction for this year's?
both.
That's a teaser for later.
Yeah. That's the last time the Panthers won a road game, by the way.
Oh, wow.
I
guess they've only won one game. Right. Remind you of some Washington football franchise games there, Matt?
It does. You know, I don't think the Panthers are really a team that travels all that well, at least in terms of fans. So the Dome probably won't have as much blue as it did last week. But I've definitely seen some meaningless games at the end of the year. I think in 2019, the Washington played the Lions, and both teams were like 2 and whatever. I've seen some bad football over the years.
Yeah, I mean, say what you want about the dreariness of this one, but it is a meaningful game, very meaningful game in the standings.
It's a meaningful game in a lot of ways.
Yeah. What do you mean by that?
Well, I mean, let's just be honest here. The Saints have no room for error in a lot of different ways here, both in terms of positioning in the division race and playoff race, whatever it is. And then when you're talking about the staff that's currently in place, I mean, they can't lose this game. They can't because it's going to be like it's already has been getting harder and harder to justify, right? And then if you lose a game when you were hanging on for dear life for playoff positioning and for all these goals that you set at the beginning of the year. If you lose a game to a 1-11 team that's already fired its coach midway through the season, I mean, I just don't know. I don't know how you can continue to justify that.
All right, what happens if they do lose? I wasn't going there to begin with, but Saints are 5-point favorites. They're expected to win this game, stay in the race. They could even be tied for first place at the end of Sunday. But what happens if it goes the other way and they give Carolina their second win?
They'll probably lose by 3 points, and Dennis Allen get up there and say, "Yeah, we're almost there. We're right there, right around the corner." No, I don't think they're going to make any changes before the season ends because I just don't think that Mickey Loomis operates that way. But I do think if you lose this game, you just got to say, "Look, this is just rock bottom," because this will be rock bottom if they lose this game.
Is there any chance there aren't changes after the season if they lose this game? I mean, I think there probably will be anyway. Some changes.
How do you sell that?
Right.
Yeah. How do you sell that on? You've already seen this fan base's trust and confidence erode with what we saw last week, right? Whether it was the boos or the number of Lions fans in there. If they were to lose, I don't think any of us think they are, right? But it's the NFL; anything can happen. And if they were to lose this game, I just don't understand how you could take that result. They'd be 5-8 effectively out of the playoff race with 4 games to go, losing to a team that was 1-11. I don't see how you could take that and be like, we have the right people in place. Those two things just don't align. They are completely incongruous.
Now, on the other hand, if they were to win, and let's just say the Saints, win convincingly, win easily, comfortably, are they going to try to sell that as like we're back, man?
They will try. I don't know how many people will believe it, but I think this is kind of a game for the defense to get back on track. Specifically, we can talk about the offense and Derek Carr, whether he plays, but Tyrann Mathieu said this week that Carolina does a lot of things well that the Saints don't do well defensively. I think he meant defensively anyway, didn't clarify. But, they have a mobile quarterback. They can run the ball a little bit. I know it's not a high, functioning offense. This isn't an elite group by any means, but it's a chance for them to at least see some of these things that they've struggled with, get it corrected, because they played pretty well against them the first time. I mean, again, it's Carolina. They're not that good, but it's a game to restore confidence a little bit, at least internally, maybe not outside expectations.
And look, I don't think we need to be all doom and gloom in here. I know we've really hammered that hard, and I know that's just kind of where the Saints are right now. But if you really, if you look at this game and the next game and even the one after that, like they have a chance to vault themselves here into being a relevant team week 17 and 18. And it has to start with these two games. You're starting obviously with the Carolina Panthers at 1-11, and the New York Giants coming in after that. Probably have Tommy DeVito starting at quarterback. They're 4-8 right now. Like those are two games you should win. Even if you're the Saints who have had trouble winning the games you should win, those are two games you should win, and you can get yourself. You can completely change this narrative going into the final 2 weeks of the season. But like they're at this like hinge point. Right now in the season where it can really go two ways, and we're talking the two ways we're talking about are like the direction of the franchise.
Yeah.
They'd have to go 3-0 for me to of these next 3 games for me to say that okay they may have figured something out, but I don't see this team going 3-0. I just don't know if this team can win.
Right.
3 games
that Rams game looks a lot harder than
right. That's what I'm saying. I don't know if you win
than it did a few weeks ago.
And when's the last time? When's the last time
LA
the
on a short
Saints?
week is tough.
The Saints haven't won 3 in a row since late last year,
Right.
and that was right after that was right after another one of those games where we're like, man, how do they get back up from here after they lost at Tampa last year?
Yeah.
It felt like it was over from there,
Right.
and they won 3 straight. So like it's possible.
And they
But,
caught some breaks though on that
They
3
did.
straight. I mean, they faced Gardner Minshew.
Mm-hmm.
Was Cleveland one of those 3 games?
I think Cleveland was, yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah. I mean, it's doable, but
Yeah, and those 3 games were.
And
on
I think
paper, they were
the other one was Ritter's first career start, Desmond Ritter's.
right. That's what it was.
Yeah. So I mean, one thing about Dennis Allen is he has been able to get this team back up. They have not quit. They haven't done that sort of thing where you just go, okay, he's lost the team. So it's on the table. Saints Insider is sponsored by Bank Plus. Their banking decisions are actually made here in New Orleans by local bankers who know the community and take the time to know you. From small business to big business, home loans to bank anywhere technology, Bank Plus is here for New Orleans. Learn more at bankplus.net. Subscribe to our YouTube channel if you haven't already. Lots of you have over the past month or so. We appreciate that. And you can click the subscribe button. You can sign up for notifications to get our next video, which will be our post-game show Sunday. And we're back every Wednesday and Friday during the season. Or leave a review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. You can also check out our written content at NOLA.com/Saints. And with that, we'll get into the matchup. First off, injury report. I don't know, one of those things on NOLA.com/Saints, Rod, was a column you wrote on Monday saying, hey, the Saints should start Jameis Winston. Even if they can rush Derek Carr back and he's technically healthy, give him a week. They're playing Carolina, start Jameis. We're speaking here Friday, like lunchtime. It sure seems like it's trending toward the Saints rushing Derek Carr back. Everything points to they think he can get cleared. He's been practicing. So it does not look like they're going to do what you said.
Yeah, I'm a little surprised by it, actually. I just figured that this was the week to do it. I mean, we talked about it a little bit on the podcast the other day, but it seems like, Dennis Allen really, if he gets through concussion protocol, it seems like he's going to be the guy, which it kind of surprises me. And part of me kind of wonders, like, is Dennis Allen, like, not wanting a quarterback controversy? I mean, you get Jameis out there and he does well, then you really got these fans kind of in an uproar. So, I mean, and I'm not sure if that's the reason behind it, or if he just really doesn't believe in Jameis, or if he just, just thinks his offense is better with Carr. I don't know.
Yeah. And there's obviously a health aspect and a human aspect here, Luke. You talked to a doctor down at Tulane, and we'll have that report in Sunday's paper about what it what it can mean for a guy to have 2 concussions in 3 weeks like Derek has.
Yeah, and one of the interesting things is the main point the doc wanted to get, and this is Dr. Stewart. He's been in the field for almost 40 years doing this. He's Tulane's team physician. Great guy, and the way he was explaining it is as much advancement as we've made in concussion diagnosis, treatment, understanding of the severity and long-term ramifications of brain injury. Yeah, like he was telling me when he first started, the way they would treat it is they give a guy smelling salts in the field, be like, "You okay? Okay, go back in the game." It's completely different now. There's 5 people on the sideline strictly there for concussion evaluation. All that being said, there's still so much that is not understood or that is unclear, is muddy, is gray. There's very little black and white in terms of concussion diagnosis, treatment, and the thing is that there's no real understanding of when you get 2 back to back or in a very short span of time, if that changes anything. If you have to treat the concussions individually, and if there's any additional concerns or worries that come with that. I mean, there are, right? And if you get 1 concussion, you are more likely to get a second concussion. If you get a concussion, you're more likely to get a lower extremity injury. Like, these are things that are understood as correlations, but the understanding of actually how they're correlated is very, very murky. So that's why they have this protocol in place, and that's why if Derek is going to play this week, he's going to have to clear a lot of hoops, and it's going to be a lot of hoops that are not put in place by the Saints. This is an independent neurologist who he's going to be seeing and getting cleared by. So, if he does get cleared, to the best of their understanding, he is ready to play. That's the best way I could put it after talking to Dr. Stewart.
Yeah, and there's a lot of concern around the league in general right now. Hayden Hurst, the Bengals tight end, is having is it short-term amnesia they called it? There's an adjective there I'm missing, I think, but he's obviously having a lot of problems after suffering his concussion earlier this year. Tua Tagovailoa last year had a couple, one that was really bad, and he was in concussion protocol for more than a month after the season. So to me, Matt, that would tell me that if the NFL is really trying to be careful about this and tamp down the uproar over, oh, hey, guys shouldn't be coming back this soon, they would err on the side of not clearing him. But it sounds like that's not what's going to happen.
Yeah, it is a curious position. I mean, I was surprised that Carr was even practicing on Wednesday. He's practiced Wednesday and Thursday now on a limited basis, but we saw last week with Chris Olave that he was limited. Was he full on Friday?
Yeah, I think he was full on Friday.
So anyways, and he was able to play and get clearance, and that's just one concussion. We don't have a lot of examples of players suffering multiple concussions in a season, let alone in a short basis like this. Like last year with Tua, I think his 2 concussions were months apart, not weeks. But even last year, there was a CBS Sports report that said that the league and the union believed that the number of players who suffered multiple concussions in one season was in the single digits. So this is rare. It doesn't happen a ton. And this is where, Carr and the Saints find themselves this week.
The other, of course, if Carr can't start, it'll be Jameis Winston. Either way, you think they would like to use Taysom Hill quite a bit, but that brings up the other major injury. The Saints had 15 guys on the injury report Wednesday, so it's not the only other one. But Taysom Hill has not practiced Wednesday or Thursday. We're recording this before practice Friday. Any idea on his status, guys, or if it's a foot and a hand injury? So we're not sure which one's more serious or anything like that.
Yeah, no idea.
Yeah,
no idea. And I will say this though, that over the years, we could pretty much bank on if a guy didn't practice Wednesday and didn't practice Thursday, there's a high degree of likelihood that he's not going to play on Sunday. Especially if that includes Friday, if they're DNP all three days of the practice week, you could pretty much just write it in stone, not going to play. that has changed a little bit under Dennis Allen. We saw just as soon as last week, Cam Jordan went the entire week without practicing. He played on Sunday. He was limited. He played 17 snaps, I think. Career low for him since snap count started being tracked. But, it's possible. So it's possible that he plays. But I think it's just as possible that when we get the final injury report later on today, he's ruled out.
The weird thing about Taysom's injuries to me is that whenever he gets hurt, like we rarely see Taysom come off the field during a game. It's like you see the practice report the first of the next week and you find out that he got hurt. I mean, he's just
he seemed fine even in the locker room.
Yeah, you think he's fine.
We saw him this week. Yeah.
He's just a tough guy. I guess he doesn't.
Yeah, man. I mean, you watch, you look at Taysom after these games. I mean, people don't see it the way we see it. That guy is just covered in bruises and scrapes. He's got ice packs on his shoulders, his knees. I mean, he looks like some 45-year-old just got done playing rec league basketball game.
The human battering ram.
Yeah. I mean, he's.
I was just gonna say it's why I understand as much as they used Taysom Hill last week, why they were always going to go to Jameis if Jameis had to play. I just don't think that's sustainable over definitely a season, but even a game-to-game basis at this point. You got to be careful with how you use them.
Let's kind of roll this into a discussion and start our breakdown of Sunday's game when the Saints have the ball. I think ideally, whether it's Carr, who's just recovered from this concussion and other injuries, or whether it's Jameis and all the uncertainty he brings, you'd like to be able to run the ball. You'd like to be able to use a guy like Taysom Hill quite a bit this week.
You would. Yeah. And I think, I don't think we should be discounting how effective their run game has been lately. And it's not just been Taysom. I think Alvin's been running the ball really well. I think their line has been playing a lot better. And I think that's why we're seeing their offensive numbers kind of start to tick up a little bit. It's really imperative to what this offense does. And especially when you're talking about what they're dealing with at the wide receiver position. We'll see today, but Chris Olave missed practice yesterday with an illness. I mean, I'm anticipating he plays, but if he didn't, I mean, their wide receiver group yesterday at practice was Keith Kirkwood, Lynn Bowden, Marquez Callaway, almost said Marquez, Shaq Davis, who's been on the practice squad injury. I mean, basically a group of guys that have between them 70 career NFL catches or something like that.
And Alvin Kamara didn't play the first game. He was serving
right.
suspension then. That was the Tony Jones game, right?
It was. 2-touchdown Tony.
Arizona?
Arizona, I think, yeah. But anyway, so I mean, this will be Kamara's first time playing in the season, and they'd like to get him going, I would imagine.
And that was kind of my point. And we put it on the graphic here. The Saints ran for 134 yards in that game without Alvin Kamara and without Jamal Williams for most of the game. He got hurt early in that game. It was Tony Jones, and then Taysom Hill was their leading rusher. I think he ran for 75 yards in that game. Carolina's defense is top 10 in the NFL against the pass, but they are, I believe, either right in front or right behind the Saints. I think they're 25th in the NFL, right behind the Saints, who are 24th against the run. Part of that, of course, is the game state. They're always trailing. The other teams are always going to try to run the ball. But, I mean, this is an Alvin Kamara game if I ever saw one, right?
No, I would agree. I will say, though, I've been impressed with what Chris Olave's shown the last few games. He was kind of in that slump mid-season. They've really gone and gotten him involved. And I think if you're looking for positives of the Saints offense, Taysom Hill had a season high in rushing attempts last week. They've gotten Kamara a little bit more involved. They went 4-4 in the red zone this last game. I know we hammered that last week. And now they're getting Olave involved. It seems like they're actually trying to use and have been a little bit more successful at getting their best players involved.
And 2 straight 100-yard games for Olave.
Yeah, and so that's obviously a good trend. And if Derek does play, he's shown the will, or let's say against Detroit, and granted they were behind by 3 touchdowns, he made some pretty good downfield throws in that game, something we haven't seen him be willing to even try in other games. My guess is this is probably a more conservative, some of the things that frustrates fans, checkdowns, things like that, because just from a managing the game standpoint and thinking you can beat Carolina if you score 20 points, why take those risks?
I don't know. I think they've got some narrative homework to do out here, or they need to turn things around. Obviously, we just talked about how important it is to beat Carolina. You can't get into a situation where you're struggling or put yourself in a position to lose that game. But yeah, I do think it's important for them to really excel offensively and not necessarily just manage this game.
So what you're saying is they could use a 35-7 win.
That's exactly what I'm saying. Easy stuff, right?
Yeah, just to kind of calm everybody down.
I think at this point, even though I understand what Luke is saying, I think you just got to get out of the dome with a win and
move on.
You can't be risky.
Yeah.
You can't be throwing it and taking the chance of falling behind and giving Carolina some momentum. So I think they're going to play this one really conservative and just try to get out of the win. I know that's what Sean Payton would do. Maybe what Luke is saying is, maybe he's right, but
well, and there exists like a reality in which you kind of play it conservative and build a 10-0, 13-0 lead at halftime, and then Bryce Young makes a mistake, which he's done all year long, and then all of a sudden it does turn into a New England game again, where it's not like they won that game 34-0. It's not like they were throwing caution to the wind that day.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, you guys are probably right, right? The most important thing is going to win, obviously, but I just do think that just what they really need is to have a dominating effort. And it's not going to change anybody's opinion overnight here. But I mean, they can't be in a position where they're going out there and going 3-and-out on their opening series and just getting mercilessly booed again. That's just I think they've got to do some surgery on their narrative here.
But at least the boos won't be as loud this weekend because there won't be as many people there.
Don't do that.
Yeah, I mean, it may be a half-empty dome.
Half empty. Come on now. It won't be half empty.
I don't know, man. I'll talk to you 15 minutes before kickoff.
We're always as reporters who are sitting in in the stands and or in this press box, and we only have a very, very small view of the field and the seats. I think we are always overestimating the amount of empty seats there are. Always.
That's fair.
We'd be like, oh, it's half empty, and they'd have
and the color
10,000 empty seats.
I was in Washington. I disagree.
Well, I mean, look. I mean, the fans aren't going to understand this, but how can you see the seats from the Washington press box? You're below the loge level or something like that, and your field of view is like this.
That's corny. The away. I mean, it's still the same press box, but the away angle is much worse than the home angle. The home angle, they're kind of more. You can kind of see. It's still not great, but you can still see the upper levels. You get a good feel for, the away side and the mostly other away side. But
Commanders just catching all sorts of strays.
Yeah, we're comparing the Saints to some moribund franchises here. The other thing is the seats at the Superdome are weird colors and they change colors. It can make it hard to tell.
That's the whole thing.
Yeah,
right. That's the whole reason they have the confetti seats in there. So you can't
tell if they're empty always because it could be people wearing colored shirts.
Maybe that's some dude in a maroon shirt.
Plays tricks on your eyes.
Sitting next to some dude in a teal shirt.
I just see nothing but empty shirts.
Commanders and Jags fans who show up to Saints Panthers.
All right, let's flip things. Keep them on track. When the Panthers have the ball, I was just looking up some stats just to make sure I had them right. The Panthers are 30th in total offense. They're 30th in passing offense. They are 29th in scoring. They are all the way up at 26th in rushing. This is a bad offense. But another thing Rod wrote this week, the Saints defense has been, we called them mediocre on Wednesday. Lately they've been straight up bad themselves. This is a get right game and they need it.
Yeah, it might be a good game for both teams. Carolina might be getting right. But, this Panthers offense is you just called the numbers out. I mean, I was looking at some of the numbers, and, they're not very good. I think Bryce Young is – he hadn't thrown for over 250 yards in a game this entire season, 9 interceptions, 9 touchdowns. But he's a mobile quarterback. He doesn't just take out running a lot, but he can extend plays. And, we've seen, what can happen when they extend plays. And, again, this is a team that I think the Saints need to jump on early. You can't let Bryce Young hit a couple of big plays and all of a sudden you're down 7-0 and they get some confidence and Saints are starting to panic. And because I think they will panic if they get down early because they just can't afford to do that against
that scenario Young. Sounds way too realistic, man. It's like every home game they've had this year.
Yeah, that's kind of what we
have. They had a big lead in the home game.
They got smoked by the Bucs. They were down 17-3 to the Jaguars.
Titans was within 3 points the entire time. The Bears, they fell behind.
And then
Lions.
Lions, they were down 21-0.
They have not gotten off to what even a remotely good start. I think against the Bucs, they got a field goal in the first drive.
Yeah, I think
That might be the best start they've gotten off.
Look, I mean, this isn't just look. Yes, it's at home, but I was looking up. They've like 60% of their offensive plays they've run while trailing this year. It's trailing. It's not like tied or trailing. It's behind. It's not good. But like to Rod's point, this has to be the week the defense shows it's even mildly capable of being a defense for a team that's contending for a division title. Carolina has no juice whatsoever. I think, but Adam Thielen has been their best receiver all season. He's probably like a number 3 option, like a decent number 3 option on most teams. Miles Sanders has been a huge disappointment. Their overall running numbers are fine, but there's absolutely nothing about this offense that scares you outside of Bryce Young extending plays. And even then, that hasn't really worked out for him this year and turned into positive stuff. So, I mean, they have to play a solid, at least a solid defensive game this week. And they certainly can't do what they've done basically since week 5, which is just allow the other team to, I mean, they're getting outscored 130 to like 67 or something like that in the first half since week 5.
Yeah,
they can't do that again.
The first meeting with the Panthers is back when this defense was still considered legitimately a great NFL defense. They sacked Bryce Young 4 times that day, which didn't seem crazy to us, but it's by far their season. I don't even think they've had 3 in another game, maybe once. So, Matt, I guess the question is, can the pass rush get home, and can they do it without sacrificing the run defense, which is what we know Carolina's going to try to do, at least at the beginning of the game, is run.
Yeah, I mean, we'll see what Cam Jordan can do. Joe Woods this week said that he anticipated Jordan snaps to be a little bit more than what they were last week. Jordan was able to at least practice on a limited basis on Thursday, so some progress for him. But looks like Isaiah Foskey isn't going to play. I know he hasn't been the most productive in the world, but between him, Granderson, banged up Jordan, Jason Pierre-Paul's gone. Their interior hasn't had really of a strong push this year. It seems like Zach Bond showed some progress last week rushing the passer. It feels like they're going to have to maybe get their linebackers involved, get some sacks that way, because it's not the most productive group, obviously, but Bryce Young does hold the ball. I think he's on pace for 64 sacks. Wouldn't it be league first? That would be Sam Howell, but in Washington. But young quarterbacks hold the ball, and I think just for Carolina in general, we talk so much about what's the Saints' identity. The Panthers have really gone through the ringer with that. Frank Reich was fired, but even before he was gone, he took away play calling duties from Thomas Brown and gave them up midway through the year, took them back. It's been just a mess over there. And so when their offense is a mess, I think that creates opportunities to rush the passer.
Yeah, and the Saints have some defensive injuries that I can't remember if this was before our last podcast or not, but Malcolm Roach is now on injured reserve. Yep. Marcus May's on injured reserve. So, they have some holes to fill too.
Yeah, and I mean, I think the other thing, we talk about the Saints not quitting. For a 1-11 team, like Carolina's still playing hard. They haven't really gotten blown out too many times. I think Dallas did it. There was one other game where they really got hammered, but they haven't been good, but they're not like a team that you expect to come in here and just roll over either.
Yeah, well, and I think you look back at the history between these two teams. I mean, division games, it's usually pretty close. And like, there's been some bad Panthers teams that come in and won here. So I think I remember Kyle Allen throwing for like 350 yards against them. Your guy.
Yeah.
Man.
Big Bachelor fan. Fun fact.
Okay. Particularly in the rematch of division games. Like, a lot of times the second time you play a team, and they're different teams. At least the Saints are a different team than they were in week 2, but I don't think we expect it to be a blowout. Quick note on special teams before we get into predictions. I looked this up. If this is the kind of tight defensive struggle we anticipate, you're looking at field position. Johnny Hecker, 5th in the league in net punting. Lou Hedley, 29th in the league in net punting. Just saying.
I applaud you for looking up those special team stats. That's gold star of the week.
I needed something for that slide.
Can I want to get on a soapbox about something and say, like, I don't give a you-know-what about field position ever.
Wow.
Ever.
Okay.
Like 5 yards of field position is like should not matter in the NFL ever.
Should not.
It really should not. It shouldn't. It's one of the things that like it kills me when like a coach decides to like punt from their own like 38. You know,
That
because
is completely ridiculous.
Because they don't want to attempt a long field goal and give up the field position. And then the punter kicks it in the end zone. It's like you did all that over for like
8 to
15 yards.
Sure.
Like who cares? Like especially, I get the whole argument for it. I just hate it. And I think it's dumb, and I think it's vastly overrated. I think
see
field
you
position
watch-
sucks.
See, you watched the Patriots Steelers game
I did-
last night as well because
I did not watch the Patriots.
okay. Well,
Steelers.
there was a
I
lot
did
of
not
that,
put myself
so.
through that.
Well, it was either that or the Pelicans, so
Yeah.
not
I watched
great options.
I watched Skyfall for the 40th time instead.
Probably a good choice. All right, before we get into predictions, I want to let you know that the holidays are here, and there's no better gift than a championship poster to commemorate a lot of titles the past few years in Louisiana. We've got individual posters, championship poster sets for LSU, Tulane, the Saints. They're all available. They will arrive before the holidays, and we've got a discount for you. Go to store.NOLA.com, use promo code INSIDER for 15% off. That's store.NOLA.com. All right, into predictions. Do any of us, just like we said last week, does anyone have the guts to pick the Saints? I did. I was wrong. I'm now like way behind you all. There was a moment when it was 33-28 and they had the ball, and I thought, I picked the Saints to win by 1 point. If they score here, go for 2, don't get it. Like I got to order a crystal ball off of Amazon, and instead I guess I get the dunce cap. But do any of us have the guts to pick the 1-11 Panthers in the Dome? Jeff Duncan's not here. He went first. He actually has the Saints winning quite comfortably, 27-17. So that's one for the Saints to get back in the win column. How about you, Rod?
I can never remember what my actual score prediction was, but
It was
13 to 14.
16 to 13.
16 to 13,
Because
you
I'm
would- yeah.
17 to
13.
14.
Okay,
so.
I know.
Spoiler. Yeah.
I got it close. Maybe a walk-off field goal, and I just think because they've played already, and I do think Bryce Young is really determined to kind of get things turned around. So I think he's going to probably play well. Not well enough to win, but I think he'll play well. And I think this Saints defense, with some of the injuries they have, I think they are going to have their moments. So I think this game will be close, and I don't know if the fans are going to leave excited, but it will be a win, which is really all that matters.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it is. And I'll say this. If Bryce Young plays well against that defense, I think they're going to score more than 13 points. But I'm a similar track. I have the Saints winning 20-14. I just think it's just one of those games where talent will win out. Urgency will win out. The Saints obviously need this game a lot more than the Panthers do. Panthers don't even own their first-round pick. I mean, they're basically just trying to play for improvement at this point. So I have the Saints doing just enough, kind of one of those mundane games that's never actually in doubt, even though it technically is. Saints win 20-14. And by the way, as a bonus, I have Tampa Bay going into Atlanta and beating the Falcons. So we'll have a 3-way tie at 6-7 atop the NFL's most interesting division.
Gross.
Yes.
Okay, is it me?
It is you?
All right, I picked the Saints to win 20-13. Yeah, I know. I just like got up here and talked about how I want to see an aesthetically pleasing game. I just don't think we're going to see it.
Come on.
Regardless of who plays quarterback, the receiving options are kind of limited for the Saints right now. Taysom Hill might not be available. All that being said, there's nothing about this Panthers offense, even going against a Saints defense that has struggled, that really gives me any optimism they'll get anything legitimate going against the Saints team. So another ugly game, but a win, and that's really all that matters at this point.
Yeah, along those same lines, I've got 17-14. I could see it being a game where maybe Carolina makes it closer than it seems at the end. That do they need the onside here or something like that? But Saints should be able to move the ball, maybe not enough to get into the end zone consistently, but between the middles, as we've seen, I think Kamara's going to have a nice game. But I just don't think this team, especially after this 3-game losing streak, they're not at a point where they are good enough to blow teams out right now, even teams like the Panthers. I just think they need to find something to get them back on track, no matter how small. And so 17-14.
So when's the last time all 5 of us picked the Saints? Do you know?
I know we did against Carolina in week 2. No, I don't think we
New
did.
England?
The Bears?
I think somebody. Yeah, it was the Bears.
Was it New England?
No, I picked against them in New England.
So it was the Bears.
It was the Bears. Yeah.
It could be the
I've had-
Bears.
well, I keep trying to be contrarian, and usually you can win in the NFL being contrarian, but it hasn't worked out for
Not
the
against
Saints.
us. Geniuses.
I just kind of think like the Saints. We talked about they're not good enough to win 3 in a row. Like that would be surprising. I don't know that they're bad enough to lose 4 in a row, but maybe I'll be overruled by that, especially not against the Panthers.
We'll see.
We will see. We will see, and we'll see you after the game. 30 minutes after the final whistle on Sunday will be the Saints Insider post-game show live from the Dome. These guys will come out from the locker room and drop their knowledge and analysis. And we'll be back on this feed on Wednesday. So subscribe to the SaintsOnNOLA.com YouTube channel for all of the Saints Insider content, or subscribe on Apple Podcasts and Spotify, and check out NOLA.com/Saints for all of our written content as well. For Rod Walker, Luke Johnson, Matthew Paris, Robert Young, our producer, I'm Zach Ewing. Thanks for watching.